I'd like to welcome the Minister of the House, and this is item 1021, motion regarding the Good Friday Agreement. It's a Sinn Féin motion. Could I call on Senator Neil O'Donnell? Senator, you have 16 minutes. Your sharing time.
10 and 6 with my colleague Lynn Boylan. Minister, thank you for being here tonight for tonight's motion. I think that signals the seriousness of the subject matter we're discussing and indeed your interest in it. Can I also welcome Luna Labino and Grace Tierney from the Irish Council of Civil Liberties, and Daniel Holder, the Director of the Committee for the Administration of Justice, who are in the gallery with us this evening. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank colleagues from across the House for their support for tonight's PMB. I know all members share the same deep concerns that I and many others have about the implications of the British Government's Nationality and Borders Bill on life in Ireland. I think it's a very important public message we are sending to the British Government here tonight that this Chamber will be united and implacably opposed to their regressive and harmful legislation. This shows the scale of opposition to the Nationality and Borders Bill here. This bill will fundamentally damage the Good Friday Agreement, the economy of this country, south and north, and directly affect the lives of countless workers, families, students, healthcare professionals, people availing of healthcare, who at the moment move freely south to north and north to south on a daily basis to work and live their lives. Just think for a moment, Minister. Will a refugee child or someone from outside Britain or Ireland who has made this place their home and who plays for their local GAA club have to apply for a waiver if they want to come up north to play a match, to take part in a cool camp, to watch a championship game? That is the level to which this legislation can negatively permeate throughout the lives of our communities. It will potentially disrupt trade, tourism, education, healthcare and day-to-day life, especially for communities along the border. I believe that the broader motivations and intentions behind their bill are repugnant, anti-refugee, and run contrary to any kind of progressive, inclusive and positive politics which I and my colleagues, and I believe a majority of people in Ireland, would aspire to. This bill is rooted in the British Government's Brexit decision, a decision which caused chaos among the people of Britain and continues to cause serious collateral damage to the people of Ireland right up to this day. We have only to look at the refusal of the DUP to form an executive in the north because of their attitude to the protocol, itself a consequence of Brexit, a necessary consequence to protect the economy of this country and the economy of the EU. So the people of Ireland are being punished by the Borders Bill and by the DUP's approach to the agreed protocol, both products of the decisions by the British Government. One of the few but very important successes of our collective opposition to Brexit was to ensure there would be no hardening of Britain's border in Ireland. That was achieved because the Irish Government and the majority of parties in the North's executive were opposed to such a border. And crucially, that opposition had the support of President Joe Biden's administration and the support of EU member states. The decision, Minister, was not to have a hard border. It wasn't conditional. It was unconditional. There was to be no border of any kind, physical or electronic. And now we are facing on foot of the Nationality and Borders Bill, which has been passed in Westminster, a hard border for some, but which will very quickly become, because of its broader ramifications, a hard border for each and every one of us. We are facing the imposition of an electronic waiver for non-Irish and non-British citizens travelling throughout this country. It will affect tourists from all over the world, especially those many tourists who visit us from North America. In practice, Minister, this bill could require President Joe Biden, should he choose to lead a delegation on a visit to Ireland, for many of whom this is their ancestral and much-loved family home place, to have an electronic waiver to travel north. How absurd and how offensive is that? When we consider someone like Congressman Richie Neal, for example, a proud Irish-American who will address the Seanad later this month, we hope, who has been absolutely steadfast and abundantly clear in his opposition to any hardening of the border and the consequences such a move would have, are we seriously telling someone like Richie Neal, who travelled here throughout the 1980s when the conflict was at its height, that he will now in 2022 need a waiver to move from one part of Ireland to another? How do we think that will go down? How did the British Government think that will go down? Those affected, from wherever they come, will affect the rest of us who live here. We may be related to those who travel daily across the border or who are visiting here as tourists or as our families. The peace process brought with it many benefits, in particular the right to freedom of movement, unhindered across this country. The British government, the British bill that we're debating here tonight effectively ends that freedom of movement for non-Irish and non-British citizens. In that regard, Minister, it is a direct assault on the Good Friday Agreement, on the peace process and on the political processes and institutions that emerged from it. Quite frankly, Minister, in my opinion, it's total madness. As members here will know well, I am of the view that there should be no border in Ireland. The sooner we get rid of it, the better for us all, nationalists, unionists and everyone else. The imposition of this electronic border serves the interests only of the British government. Its imposition reflects the indifference and indeed disregard of that government about the needs of the people of Ireland and our peace and political processes, and, as I've said, to our economy. It is ushering in a hierarchy of rights where the British government, not the Irish government, not the North's executive, not the people who live here, is the arbiter, the decision maker of how we will live our lives, how people who come here for a better way of life live their lives, how visitors from all over the world relax and enjoy Ireland's famous and world-renowned hospitality. Minister, I'm sure much like yourself, I often wish someone, somewhere, please, in the British government and their Parliament would actually read the Good Friday Agreement. Tourism Ireland is a cross-border body set up under the auspices of the GFA. It does a world-class job in promoting Ireland internationally. It promotes Ireland, as you, Minister, and colleagues will know, as a single tourist destination, as one unit, where people can visit Kilmainham Jail and the Guinness Storehouse on Monday, the Cliffs of Moher and the Ring of Kerry on the next, before finally making their way to the James Connolly Visitor Centre, Titanic Belfast, the Game of Thrones exhibition, the Museum of Free Derry and the Somme Heritage Centre on another day. All being enjoyed unhindered, uninterrupted, unimpeded, as it should be. The bill we're debating tonight undermines all of that and significantly and flagrantly disrupts the positive and transformative work of a GFA body, namely Tourism Ireland. Today, the North's Tourism Alliance provided a detailed assessment of the damage the bill will have on the tourism industry. The assessment said the bill will be hugely detrimental to tourism on this island. The report identified that those who have to apply for a waiver, and pay for it too, by the way, they'll have to pay for the privilege, some 60% of them spend nights in the north and the south, and that 13% spend one night in the north. The tourism industry was not consulted at any stage in the process of this bill, despite being key stakeholders. Typical, if you ask me. And in all of this, we need to remember that the tourism industry, as a result of the pandemic, is already on its knees. It cannot take the unwanted imposition of this so-called waiver. Tourism Ireland's research has continually confirmed that hassle and expense are key deterrents for travellers when choosing their holiday destination. Therefore, consumer perception on ease of travel is paramount. In addition, should the ETA be implemented in its current format, EU nationals who arrive in the south using an EU ID will not be able to enter the north, as a passport is a prerequisite for the ETA. This will be an additional cost should they decide to visit Ireland. The report also estimates that £130 million is at risk from the imposition of the ETA for people who live in the south, not Irish residents, but are legally resident due to EU membership, should they wish to travel north. On an industry-wide level, the Tourism Board estimate the introduction and associated ETA costs could be £160 million, affecting over 500,000 visitors. Derry, in particular, because of its border proximity, could be hit hard. And that key visitor attractions could also be hit. It's obvious to any it's obvious on any sensible rule of thumb that this bill should not have become law, should not be implemented, and that the Irish Government should use its high standing and status in the international community to mobilise international opinion to convince the British Government to bin their bill. I want to thank, Minister, through you, your departmental officials, particularly in the Irish Embassy in London, who have worked tirelessly in highlighting the implications of this bill. I'm deeply sorry that they and many of the rest of us have once again been ignored by the British system and their insular agenda in pursuing the Nationality and Borders Bill. Minister, I hope, as the motion calls on you to do, you will lead strongly in mobilising international pressure and opposition to ensuring that Ireland, our people, our workers, our students, our communities, our valued visitors are all protected from the potential impact of this British Government legislation. Garamaiget.